Hello everyone, welcome to Coder and Boots. So in this video, we are going to discuss about how to manage AWS S3 using Python Boto3. Okay, so there are various ways to interact with AWS services. So the first way or the primary way of interacting is through the AWS console. That is something that everyone uses. The advanced way is by using programs. Okay, so in the programming way itself, there are various ways. So we can use infrastructure as code services like Terraform, right, Ansible, etc. Other option is by using the SDK mechanism. So we can leverage the SDK. So in Python we have something called Boto3. We can use Java programs or Node.js, the Ruby, etc. Some other programming languages as well. So but in this video I am going to demonstrate the way of interacting with AWS S3 using Python Boto3. So I am going to automate a couple of operations. So the idea is to equip you to interact or do any operation on S3 using a Python program. Okay, so I'll familiarize or I'll make you familiarize with some of these operations so that so that you can do anything. Okay, so I'll help you with the remaining functions as well. So the operations that we're going to do in today's video are list buckets, create a bucket, upload file to bucket, get the bucket details, download file from a bucket, generate pre-signed URL, delete a bucket. So once you develop this program, you can run this program from anywhere and this activity will happen from or the program will do this activity. Okay, so let's get into the hands-on session. So I am using a small program here. So let's start with the small program. Okay, so what I am going to start is, first we need to install the package Boto3. I have already installed the Python package Boto3. So that is easy. So just do pip install Boto3. That will take care of the installation. Then second thing is we need to so we need the credentials to interact with the AWS service, right? So that means so there are multiple ways to authenticate or authenticate with AWS. So one is using AWS access key and secret key. That is the easiest option, but it's not the recommended option in all the scenarios. So but just to familiarize with you, or familiarize you with the functionalities, I'm going to use the access key and secret key. But gradually what I'll do is, in the upcoming videos I'll help you with the other methods as well. There are different methods like using IAM roles, using certificates, using session tokens, etc. So I'll cover those topics in a different video. In this video I am just using access key, ID and secret access key. Okay, so this is a sensitive information that that we can create from the AWS console. You need to go to IAM. Okay, so create a user, IAM user, assign the required permissions to the IAM user. So once you get into that user, under the security section, so there is a section called security credential. So under that section there is an option create access key. Okay, I'm not going to click on this option and show you because my credentials are already there inside that. Okay, so that's why I don't want to show the sensitive information from my account, but you can try it. Okay, so you just need to open the IAM console, section access management, then go to users. If you don't have a user, you create one user, because creating access key or creating this access key from the root user is not recommended. So always create like a separate user, IAM user, and assign some limited privilege. Limited privilege means the privilege that is required for you to operate. In this scenario, the privilege that is required is to operate with AWS S3, right? So if you want some other privileges as well, you add those privileges, and then under the user, under the security section, create an access key. So you can create up to 2 access keys. So basically use 2 access key secret keys using per user. Okay, so you can create up to two for a user. Okay, so I have already generated and I have it inside my program. So what I'm going to do is I have just used, so if you see this is a variable and this is configured in this app.conf. Okay, so that has the value. It will be internally referred when we run the program. So I'm going to create, the first thing we need to create is we need to create a Boto client. Okay, so there are 2 ways okay, to create or to interact with the S3 service. One is using the client, and second is Boto3 has something called resource. Okay, so client is the low level API, so and resource is like the high level. So but both will serve the same purpose. So for most of the operations you can use either resource or client. Okay, so if you want to understand like the detailed differences between the resource and the client, you can go to the Amazon documentation and you can see the differences. But the high level difference is the Boto.client is like the low level implementation of the API, and the resource is like the high level. That means you will basically see direct operations with that particular resource itself, like with the name. So because from an end user point of view, the resource will have some more user friendly functionalities. The client will have, as it is low level, so you may need to pass some more arguments to the low level APIs. Okay, so I'm going to use the client, Boto.client, and service name is S3. We need to pass the access key, then secret key or access secret key, and then the region. Okay, so region I just passed US East 1. So as of now, this is a this account does not have any buckets. Okay, so first operation that I'm going to do is I'm going to create or I'm going to list the buckets in this region. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to get into the AWS Boto3 documentation. So if you open the AWS Boto3 documentation, you can maybe bookmark this link. Okay, Boto3 AWS Amazon AWS.com. So there under that you can see documentation, and so under the documentation you see available services. Okay, so available services, there are a lot of services. All these are AWS services, and in the service look for or search for S3. Okay, so once you click on S3, you will see these operations within the S3 service. Okay, so you can see about multi-part upload, can paginate, close, complete multi-part upload. There are a lot of functions available here. So here what we are going to do or try first is list buckets. So let's click on list buckets. Okay, so the implementation, the syntax is client.list buckets, and then max buckets, continuation token, prefix string, and bucket region. Okay, so some of these options are maybe we can say optional, but some are like mandatory. Okay, so in this case prefix is basically to filter. Let's say if there are a lot of buckets in your account, and if you want to filter by something, let's say like some keys or something, so then you can use the prefix. If you don't pass, what will happen? It will list the entire set of buckets. Let's copy this. Okay, paste it, and in our case the client name is S3 client, right? So S3 client dot list buckets, max buckets, let it be there. I'm removing this continuation string. I'm removing this this particular the prefix string. Maybe region also I'll remove. Let's see whether it will run without region. Okay, so then I'm going to print the response. Okay, so let's run this and see what happens. Okay, it responded, and if you see, this is the response. So it's a long response. Maybe let's copy the things till end, and I'm just opening a notepad and view format. Okay, so if you see response metadata, so this is how it came. Response metadata, request ID, host, okay, status code, etc., HTTP headers, and in this you see there is a key called buckets. Okay, and the value is list. Okay, so if you see so it's a JSON, and in that, in the data, if you see, there is something called buckets, and in the bucket, as we don't have any buckets within our account, so it just came empty. Okay, empty list. Okay, so if you want just the buckets itself, right? So what we can do is we can just get the value of the keys buckets itself. Okay, so that's the idea. So what we'll do is, right now we got the response, right? There is nothing here. So now what we're going to do is we are going to create a new bucket. So here in this S3 client, so let's go back, and there is something called create bucket. Okay, let's look for the create bucket functionality. So ABC, see create bucket. So here let's see the syntax. So client, okay, then create bucket, and then we have to pass ACL, then we have to pass the bucket name, then the create bucket configuration, the region, right, location, we have to pass a region, then location availability zone string, then bucket single availability zone, right. So it has, I mean, some set of arguments to be passed. Okay, so let's see what all things are the important items or the fields to be passed. So one is bucket name, this is required. Okay, and then what else is there? Okay, so I think the bucket name and maybe the region, I think it will pick up the default location specifies. Okay, so let's try this. So equal to S3 client dot create bucket, and let's pass the bucket name bucket equal to okay, coordinate boots bucket, and region region, let it be the default one, so that will be mostly US East one. So I'm not going to pass the region. Okay, so I'm just going to leave the remaining things as is empty. Let's see whether this works or not. So S3 client, sorry, S3 client, we need S3 client dot create bucket. Okay, print response here. Let's run this and see whether it needs some other arguments or it works or not. Yeah, I think it worked. So if you see, it created coder and boots bucket. Okay, so now let's go to the AWS console and verify whether the bucket got created. So let's check for, look for S3, and then let's loading buckets. You see coder and boots bucket, and it was created on this time. Okay, so it's a 20, right? It's almost like, I mean, 1 minute ago, 30 seconds ago, the bucket got created. Okay, and by default, if you don't specify the region, what will happen is it will get created in the US East one. So that means the North Virginia region. Okay, it will get created. So good, the bucket got created. Now what we'll do is, so next activity is we will try the list buckets. So this is what we tried some time back, right? So we'll try this list bucket programmatically and see what is there. Sorry, we are not printing the response, right? So response. Okay, so here previously the buckets, yeah, you see, previously the buckets was empty. Now the bucket has something called name, okay, coder bucket, creation date, bucket region, owner, all those information is there. Okay, so if you want to frame the or get the data in a proper way, what we can do is response metadata of response metadata. Let's see what is happening here. Request ID. Let's see what is there in the response metadata. Request ID, and then buckets. It is, I think it's outside. It's on the outside. Yeah. Okay, so response of buckets. So it was, the request metadata was separate, buckets were separate. Okay, so it was the key name is buckets. So the response of buckets, it will give you it's a list. So if there are multiple buckets, so let's say if there are multiple buckets, then you can iterate over the list. So for example, for bucket in response of buckets, then print bucket. Okay, so bucket of maybe name. Okay, or bucket dot get key of name. So bucket of creation date, of so in this way you can iterate over the values and get the data. See, bucket of name, bucket of date. Okay, so you can do in whatever way you want, and you can utilize in your programs. Okay, so I'm just giving you a high level overview. So now we have listed the bucket, we have created the bucket. So now what we'll do is, the next operation is, once we have the bucket, so it's empty, nothing is there inside the bucket. Let's try to upload something to this bucket. That's the next goal. So let's look at the functionalities over here. There are different ways to upload files to a bucket. Okay, for small files we can just use upload file, but for large files we use something called multi-part upload. So in this example I will demonstrate with a small file, because multi-part upload is required for uploading like several GBs, like more than 5 GB kind of large files to the bucket. So let's use this functionality. This functionality is also very simple. So upload file, we just need to pass the file name, bucket name, and the target location, the target file name in the bucket. Okay, so let's try. So S3 client response equal to, and we need a file, right, locally. So what I am going to do is, I am going to upload my requirements.txt. I have a file locally, requirements.txt. Let's upload that file. txt, and I am going to upload it into the S3 with the name requirements.txt itself. Okay, and my bucket name is this one, Coder and Boots bucket. Okay, so S3 client dot upload file requirements.txt coder and boots hyphen bucket. This is my bucket name, and this is the file in the S3. Okay, in S3 we call it as key. Okay, in S3 is an object store, right? So we call the files as keys. So let's see what happens with this. Let's run this. So let's see whether something got uploaded, right? You see, the file got uploaded. Let's open this. Okay, so requirements.txt, the file got uploaded. We can even download and verify the content. Open it. Okay, Boto3. I have Boto3. Okay, so that is my requirements.txt. So the file got uploaded, right? So successfully uploaded. You can do this mechanism to upload any file. Now let's see what else is there with this. Okay, so similarly there is just like I'm in upload file, there is something called download file. So let's download this file. The functionality is also simple. So here what we need to pass, bucket name, the file name over there, the file name in the local, right? So the file name, so the key is basically the file name on in S3. So as these are like positional, you can either pass with key and the value, or simply, like if you are just maintaining the order, you can simply pass the values, right? So let's try this. S3 client dot download file, and our bucket name is what, coder bucket, and our file name is requirements.txt. Right, requirements.txt. I missed a code here, and I have already requirements.txt locally, so I'm going to do I'm going to create a directory. I'm going to create a directory data, and locally I'll keep maybe hello.txt. Okay, so let's see whether it downloads it to this directory or not. Let's run this. Okay, it finished. So let's see whether there is something inside this data. Yeah, you see hello.txt. So target file, I kept a different name because I already have requirements.txt here, right? Let's open this so you can see the same content. Okay, so it downloaded the file. Okay, S3 download file. So similarly, there are a lot of other one more thing I wanted to highlight was, if you see this bucket, so this is one of the buckets, and if you click on this bucket, you will see a lot of configurations within the bucket, like bucket properties, right, region, right, then there is AR and creation date, bucket versioning, it's disabled right now, and then tags, encryption, right, and then there is like tiering configuration, access logging, right, then there are a lot of other settings, right, so static website configurations, a lot of settings associated with the bucket. And if you see this functionality, there are a lot of things that deals with this, like get bucket lifecycle, get bucket cores, then bucket policy, ownership controls. So similar to get, there are like put functions as well. So one is for reading, and the other ones are all for setting those. Okay, so it is not just for the Boto is not just for uploading or downloading files. It can take care of all other administrative operations as well. The only thing is you just need the user in which you are using for accessing this, right, or interacting this, needs the relevant permissions. Okay, so now we have done with like what, downloading the file from bucket, right? So now I'll help you. I'll show you one important functionality. Okay, something called pre-signed URL. So let's say you want to download this file, okay, or you want to expose this file to an end user or a third-party user. So you want to generate. So by default, the buckets are all private. So private means the buckets will not be, the contents inside the buckets will not be accessible to anyone else. So they need the proper credentials to access the content. But let's say if you want to expose a particular file to someone, and without passing the credential or without sharing the credential, what we can do is we can generate something called pre-signed URL. So pre-signed URL is an HTTPS URL. So it's a web URL, and it will have a temporary credential that will be valid for a specific period of time. So they will be able to access the URL till the duration that we set. Okay, so this is the way that we use for sharing the files in applications, web applications, mobile applications, etc. from S3 buckets. If S3 is used as the storage mechanism for. Yeah, the function name is generate pre-signed URL. So let's get it from here. So it is generate pre-signed URL, and here what we need is we need to pass the client method parameters and the expiry. So client method, here we define what's the access method for that, and then parameters we pass like the bucket name. So this is basically passed as a dictionary. We pass the access the bucket name and the file, the key. Okay, and expiry, this is the expiry of the URL. So by default it is 1 hour, but you can reduce it or increase it based on your choice. Okay, so these are the arguments. So let's try here. So so this is like I'm in the function. So we have the S3 client, generate pre-signed URL, client method, it is get object. So we want to download this file, right? So get object, and then params, I'm passing the bucket name. So this is my bucket name, and key is the file name. So if the file is within a folder, you can pass the path and the file. Okay, so and expiry, it is 3600. So what we'll do is let's run it. So we'll run it, and you see a URL getting generated, right? So this URL, it has something called the base path, and you see there is AWS access key ID. Okay, so this and a signature. So this access key ID and the signature, right? The signature is something. So this is a temporary token. What will happen is it will expire after 1 hour. Okay, so now you see the file is getting downloaded. So this this URL will work for the for the duration that you see here. It has like something called the expires equal to something, right? So if it is beyond that, it will expire. That's the that's the beauty of this pre-signed URL. Okay, so similarly, so I think, I mean, we have covered some of the functionalities in this AWS S3. Similarly, you can try out any of the functionality over here, and so if you open that particular function, you will see what are the arguments required for that. You can frame the argument, you can make the API call. So now what we can do is, this is as we have covered some of the topics, right? Let's delete the bucket. So this is the last one we are going to try here. So this is simple. What we need is delete bucket name, and I think, I mean, the bucket name is the only mandatory one. Bucket owner is not really required. Okay, so let's delete that. Okay, so S3 client dot delete bucket, and our bucket name is coder in boots bucket. Coder in boots bucket. And then expected bucket owner, let's delete, and then let's run this. What is this? Bucket you try to delete is not empty, right? Okay, so it won't allow you to delete, okay, a non-empty bucket. So what we need is, we need to delete the file as well, right? So there is option to right now we tried the delete bucket, right? So there is delete key also will be available. So let's see, delete object. So let's delete the key first, then let's okay, so the file got deleted. Let's verify it. So let's refresh it from here. Okay, nothing, it's empty. Now we can try deleting the bucket. Let's try deleting the bucket now. So now the bucket got deleted. Okay, now let's list the buckets. So let's refresh. Okay, no buckets, you don't have any buckets. So we started with 0 buckets, created a new bucket, did some operations, and now we deleted the bucket. So I hope this video is useful. With this mechanism, you can try doing any operations on AWS S3. So I'll be doing more sessions on the operations on other services like EC2, RDS, Redshift, EMR, a lot of other things. So keep watching, stay tuned. Okay, thank you very much for watching this video. Have a nice day.